call it to
Okay.
order here. I've got 9/11. Chris, you got that?
Yes, 9/11.
Okay. Um, So the roll call is Peter? You're
Here,
And Tim is not here as of now. So we do have a quorum between Peter and myself for the meeting. The review, the main item, of course, is the number 3 item, the review of the study recommendations as far as, the future is concerned. And that's there's a lot of material in there that, needs to be looked at as outlined in the survey results. And we have existing service, frequency service, Saturday, Sunday service, and more bus stops. The whole big area to touch on. And some of those were in your surveys, Joe. All of them are goodies that I think everybody would like to have. The question is what is the most practical, and what we don't know is, what are the economic and finances that go along with those. I don't think that's the economic side is not, an area that this committee can really deal with. But Joe, does that fit with your understanding of where we're at and what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think we will have to, I think what we could do is I have the presentation that the consultant had prepared that we went through, but we can actually spend some time on it because it has every recommendation in it. And some of our, and then I think we take kind of the things that don't cost money, which there's some, and we see which ones we like there, and not today, not necessarily all this today. I think today we try and make sure everyone understands the recommendations. And then I think, the next step would be, okay, we take what's free or low cost. That's, the low hanging fruit we could do now and see which ones we want to implement. And then we take the things that cost money and are going to require us to go back and try and, ask for money, and we prioritize those in importance. And like you said, I guess we consider the cost in that obviously something really high cost. We'll consider it in terms of how we rank it. If it's really high cost, does it have high enough impact to be worthwhile? But right, we won't really worry about the money right now. We'll assume that, okay, these are the things that we're going to try to get money for. And when we do that, here's our priority of, these are our top priority items that we want to ask for money for.
hey, Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie,
Peter.
I assume this service improvement dated November 20. I assume this was probably the guideline that we're going through, or is there something else?
No, I believe
Yeah.
that's
it.
That's what
That's
we
it?
have to
Yeah. So
work
this,
on.
yeah, the presentation I have here is just, it was prepared by them, but it just pulls out pieces from the study. And that's it. It's all based on the study. So it's nothing new. But just if you want to go through and make sure everyone we all fully understand every recommendation, things like pulsing and those types of things are, it's not necessarily, some of the stuff's not necessarily written for somebody who doesn't already, have some background in the business. So we can make sure everyone understands what all the recommendations are.
So Joe, you have like a consolidation of,
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint that they provided that I could put up and I can
Okay.
send to you too. And it just, like I said, it just went through they presented it to us back in December, but they went through it pretty quick because it was during one of our regular meetings. But, we can spend some time on it, and it has each of the It has each of the maps in there. Every one of the recommendations is spelled out.
But you want to put that up here now?
Oh, yep, I'll put it up. Let me,
And there may be additionals, but I think that's a good starting point.
all
Katie,
right,
that,
let me, PowerPoint always is,
It's
Okay.
surprising they did not number the pages. So it gets
Yes.
pretty hard maybe to follow you. Ah, that looks good.
okay, so if I just start with they have a quick summary of today, and just so we all understand, I think it's important that by far, the biggest route in our system is the 641, which is Old Saybrook to Madison. So that's something to keep in mind that, you see it doesn't even compare to the other routes. So, and that's why several of the recommendations focus on improving 641, because obviously that's the one that we need to, not the others aren't important too in the overall system, but this is really the backbone of our entire system.
yeah, that's rather obvious, and
Yeah.
most attention or major, study should be done looking at what can be done to improve that.
Mhm. Okay, why is it? There we go. Okay. That's not important. So this is the quick summary of what people asked for in the beginning. So they said, more frequent service. And people did specifically say Route 641. So 641 today, well, I'll go back even further. Back maybe 5 years ago, 641 used to run hourly. And Peter, you probably remember, because I think you were on the board at the time, when we got cut in funding and we had to reduce service in the afternoon on that route. Remember when we had all those hearings all over?
Oh, yeah.
And so now it's hourly in the morning until noon, and then it goes down to, it's not quite, so it's a 3-hour round trip, and we have 2 buses on it from 12:30 on. So there's times that there's an hour, and there's times that there's 2 hours between the bus. So that's what people want to improve the frequency, get back to at least the hourly service. And then another one came up a lot was the 644, which is to Old Saybrook to Middletown. That's 2 hours. Every other route is 2 hours. Besides 641, every other route was 2-hour frequency today. People asked for Sunday service, more Saturday service. Saturdays, we have only 2 routes right now. That's the 641 and the 642. It's the only 2 routes that run, and then Extra Mile also runs on Saturday.
Joe,
Well,
you
yes.
read on the study, the 9-town shows improve existing service at 68%. Do you read that as more frequently, or do you read it as expanding? And
I think it's all of these things. It's everything but adding a new route. So it is the more frequent, it's the Sundays, it's the Saturdays, it's longer hours. It's all those things
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that are not, just serving new places.
The comments on hailing service, that clearly is an impediment to smooth running and timeliness, isn't it?
It is. And, it does definitely slow the bus down. It also, the other thing about, so obviously there's conveniences is that you don't have to walk far to a stop. You can just stand wherever you want. There's a lot of downsides though. So that sounds really convenient, but a lot of people prefer to stand next to a bus stop sign so they know they're waiting at the bus stop, especially if you're unfamiliar with the area. Telling somebody who's not familiar with the area, go stand on Route 1 and just flag a bus down isn't, it's they're not sure they're sitting in the right spot. People get nervous. And having bus stop signs all over the place too. Obviously it's advertising for you. If as you drive down Route 1, you see bus stop signs every 3 or 4 blocks, you are more aware that there's a bus stop here. There's a bus route through here. So, but again, the negative is in the more rural places, like on Route 81, it's more challenging to have bus stops places. So, yeah.
So
But
going back to 641,
mm,
our function here to make a recommendation as far as the bus stops are concerned, whether it should be.
I think so. I think that's it was part of the
Okay.
study. So I think that is definitely part
Yeah.
of the charge here. And then we got to figure out, and so like I said, we're on the rural routes. It does the flagging's a little easier, a lot easier. It makes more sense. It's not slowing you down as much because it's more rural. Then we got to think about, okay, well, how do we message that, and how does that work? How do you message these routes are flag stop, and this route's not flag stop, this route's designated stop, and is it easier to have one messaging across the system, or should we try to have multiple messages depending on the route? That's what worries me is while it's obvious 641 should be designated stop, how do you tell people that? How do you say, okay, only this route, don't flag it down and stand here? So that's just something, all the things we have to consider. This is really changing very slowly. I don't know why. Okay. So I'm going to go into all the things. So I'll go right into the proposals here.
Okay. Go
So
ahead, Joe.
first one they show here is a 643, which is Old Saybrook to New London. And you can see what they recommend is to straighten it out and go, it still goes through the Big Y area in Old Lyme, the what they call it, Old Lyme Marketplace, and then get on 95, do Flanders in East Lyme, because that's a stop that gets utilized, and then get back on and go to New London. Today we go through all the Old Lyme, and then through East Lyme. Now this part is rarely used. It's Flanders here that gets used. Down by the beach is never done very well either. You get some people on Lime Street, but I mean it's not huge numbers, but we do get some ridership on Lime Street. And
that's a really large diversion from a straight line, isn't it?
Yes,
You
that's
pick
why it
up
takes an
enough-
hour. It takes an hour each way.
Wow. The volume justifies such a diversion?
No, it's one of those no, but of course for those people it does.
Well, most of that, or I don't know, I'm saying most, but a lot of the population down there is seasonal for the beaches, Joe.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I
mean, I can tell you, there's like one person that lives down there that rides every single day. And then there's some on, like I said, there's a few on Lime Street because that's where the schools are. The youth services is there. So we do get some people on Lime Street, but it's not, it's a couple. It's the vast majority of this route. It's what they found in the study, and it's what I know is also to be true, is that it's mostly people going from New London to Old Saybrook, and vice versa. Most of your ridership gets on either at Old Saybrook or they get on at New London.
Well, we did at some time in the past, we had a route in which one of the passengers rode it every single day. And it actually, for other reasons, became really sort of an emotional discussion because we were taking away a service that kept this man busy and part of the community. that was awfully tough decision to make. I sure hope we don't get into that one because
You will. Yeah, you
Oh.
will, because that's what's good. I mean, it's not, there's not nobody that uses this segment. It's just, but there's very few. It is very few, but it's not no one. So, like I said, I know there's a woman who lives right by Black Hall Outfitters. There's that little road, circle road there, and she rides every single day. Yeah. So,
Hey, Joe,
but she's like the only one in that segment down here.
Joe, just, a thought had occurred to me while I was going through this. With the expansion of EB coming, in the fairly immediate future with their work, is there any point or possibility of extending this over to Groton?
We could. The good thing is that where we go, we pulse the train station with the seat buses, which do go to Groton.
Yeah.
So somebody can walk right off our bus and hop on the bus to Groton.
Oh, okay. So then it's Groton's covered. So there's
Right.
no point of us duplicating it.
Yeah, no, we meet the seat buses
Yeah.
down there.
Okay.
We park right in front of them, and we coordinate transfers too. So if one of their buses is running late, they call us and they let us know, and vice versa.
Okay.
So
Charlie, go ahead.
I'm good. That answers my question of serving Groton for EB, but if C takes care of that, then
yeah,
that's good.
Joe,
We don't have to go over that bridge.
yeah, it will add. That would add a lot of time.
you may remember a year or two ago, we were focused a great deal on the rail connections between the Old Saybrook and New London. And if I remember, there were about 45 people that rode the rails, and we had very few. Is that condition still, are we still competing with the railroads for that service?
Well, not really, because the railroad doesn't go to New London that frequently.
Yeah.
So we kind of fill in. Number one, we fill in the gap of times that it doesn't run. But, and then more importantly, we're the more local thing. So if someone's just trying to get to, Old Saybrook and there, a lot of them take the bus. It's also cheaper. So a lot of them do it because of the price.
Good.
Yeah, that's a big difference, because I think it's at least $5, right, to go between the two on the train, something like that.
Yeah.
But again, the biggest thing is that the train is very infrequent to New London.
For the shoreline, there was some talk either in the legislature of making all the shoreline trains stop, well, not stop, but continue past Saybrook out to New London. That's not the existing situation, but if they're talking about it,
They were, not now. Now the proposed budget cuts Shoreline East for at least a year. So,
okay.
and the big issue is the bridge over the Connecticut River.
Yeah.
And closing the bridge in the summertime. So that has been the problem. I know years ago they had RiverCog actually do a boat count to sit and count how many boats cross through there to see how many times the bridge has to open, and because that's a big part of why it can't go so frequently is the bridge.
Well, you may remember that I chaired that group that was examining potential areas for new installation. And the best one was over on the other side of the river. And of course, there was no way we could become dependent on that bridge for services all across that area. The bridge, it was too erratic, so it was dismissed.
And the highway.
and it's still a big issue, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the highway's often a problem there. Yep, that's right. There was that very nice site over there, but we didn't want to be on that side of the river.
Now, at one point, I remember talking about the destination out of New London was that commercial area by the Mystic Market off of Route 1. That carries, I gathered, quite a substantial number of workers for that
It
area.
used to. It used to, not like it used to, because they moved a lot of that work overseas. It was it was a call center
Yeah,
that from you flowers. They have a small operation there now. They still have some people there, but it's not anything like it used to be. It used to be, there was a time that around the holidays we would leave New London with a bus full of people, and that's not the case anymore. They don't do the seasonal hiring like they used to do. It's mostly overseas call centers.
depressing.
Okay, so Joe, as far as this route to New London, can we, Peter,
So
are you okay with making or endorsing the recommendation to make the change that's outlined here on Joe's put up on this route realignment? Can we say we endorse that?
I would say that we should maybe move it to public, put it on our list of public hearing items so we can hear comments. I think you're going to get some pushback on it. And remember that while making that change is free, and it does increase the frequency of it, I'm not really sure you can really do it in an hour round trip. They say you can. I'm a little doubtful that you can make it from Old Saybrook to New London, downtown New London in 30 minutes, but not less than 30 minutes because you have to have time on either end.
That
You don't
sounds
wanna be-
reasonable.
You don't want to be straight at 30 minutes. You got to be at like 25 minutes. So you have 5 minutes at the end to recover and use a bathroom or whatever you have to do. It's a bit tight, I think. So I think we could do public hearings on it, but then we also have to remember that because there are people who use us in this area, there is an estimate. I don't think it's 2 buses, but you will probably have to add some dollar ride service to cover the fact that there's no service in this area anymore. So there is a cost if we have to add dollar ride service. So it's something we have to keep in mind that, making that change is free, but it may drive other costs.
Joe
Nothing is-
covers New London?
I'm sorry. Oh, dollar ride? No, it does not. No.
It does
So
not.
now the people that get on around Lime Street,
Yeah,
and again, based on I'm not gonna say it's based on scientific data, but based on my experience and what I know of the system, they're usually going to Old Saybrook. I know the woman that gets on over here, she goes towards New London every day. And then so there are some that would not be able to get to New London anymore, or have to take a bus over to somewhere else to transfer to get to New London. So it would have an impact there. The other thing is that that they don't mention here is that if you are able to get it down to hourly, it depends on what our pulse is here. So the challenge with pulsing is everything has to now work together and fit within the same time frame, right? Everything has to be able to work to an hour, and you got to time it to exactly. And it's the reason why we haven't pulsed them before. It's because it's not so easy when you connect with other systems. So this is where it starts to get challenging. If you continue to have a 3-hour round trip on 641, which they tried to cut it down, but it really wasn't going to work. It becomes way too tight. So if you still have 3 hours there, they meet with CT Transit on the hour in Madison, which means you have to leave Old Saybrook on the half hour, right? Because it's an hour and a half each way. So now you're pulsing on in a half hour, now you're on 30 minutes. If this is 30 minutes, that works in New London because the seat buses are on the hour. So we'd have to leave Old Saybrook on the half hour. However, then you get to the Middletown buses, and those they're proposing going to the hour. So if we have a 2-hour round trip on the 644 and it leaves at the half hour, it's going to miss all the pulses up in Middletown. So you see how the pulsing starts to get tough and why it's great for passengers, but it is tough for planning.
Is the time
Tony.
between Madison and New London, is that where you were referring to
Madison.
the 3 hours?
Madison, Old Saybrook, 3 hours round trip, so an hour and a half each way, and that's because of the malls.
That's
The
pretty
malls,
good.
the malls add a lot of time. Deviating up to them, then going
Yeah.
through the parking lots, and it's
Huh. That's
it's
quite
about
reasonable.
it adds like 15 minutes to each mall. By the time you go all the way up, go down the long road to Westbrook Outlets and go through the parking lot, stop and come on back. It's a bigger deviation than it looks, than it seems like. And same with Clinton Crossing, because it's a good bit up 81 and you got a few lights on the way. So both of them do add a good amount of time. So there, between the two malls, you add about a half hour each direction.
Hey, Joe, I went over to the Saybrook station and took a quick, fairly quick look at, where the buses stop and pick up and let off. Now, consolidating everything in the pulse method, you're going to have 5 buses. You have to have 5 buses there.
4, because one of them never comes over. One of them's from Madison to.
Okay.
So,
but looking at the space that's available there, you can park 4 buses.
oh yeah.
But whether or not you can get them in, you can't guarantee they're all going to be coming in the same direct at same
Order. No,
So-
they're going to be in whatever order they come in every day.
Yeah. So
Yes, you'll
for
have to search the buses.
Yeah, the people who want to change, you've got to search and look for the
Yeah.
next bus that you're going to get. That's going to add to your downtime there at Saybrook until you
Yeah,
get it all.
and we would do, which we would do anyway. I mean, we need time there anyway for recovery, because like I said, drivers have to use the bathroom. You just
Yeah.
want time built in anyway, so that if they do run late one trip, it doesn't carry over to the next trip.
Yeah,
So either way, you need to have recovery time, but yeah, you'll have to give people a little bit of time to get between the buses. But luckily, it's only 4 still, so it's not it's not too bad. You're not looking through a whole lot of buses, but we did make sure that was designed to fit 4 full-size buses, so there is plenty of room there to fit everything.
I spend a lot of time at the clinic, unfortunately, but I noticed the frequency of our buses, and they stop to pick up passengers at the clinic, don't they?
Yes, we do. Yep.
I think that's a very valuable service, that particular stop.
Well, and that was one of the things they said, well, what if you don't go to the outlets? I said, between the clinic and what transit system doesn't serve the malls? You have to serve the malls. That was the only way to kind of get it to 2 hours. They really wanted to try and push to 2 hours, so that's the next route here, is to put, but you just couldn't do it while serving those malls. And I can't see not serving the malls.
Yeah,
You know, because as you just said, when it comes to the Westbrook outlets, which is, you see how long on a map it really is that you backtrack when you go up there. I mean, and when you pass on 95, you could see it. You could see that the outlets are almost at exit 66 there. You know, I mean, that road's fairly long. But you have the clinic there, and we do have people that get on and off the clinic regularly. So, the only real changes that they recommend here and is so there's two. One is also the Clinton train station. That is something we're still working on. So we wouldn't worry about that now. We're still not sure how that's all going to work. It's really been a whole big thing.
The Clinton Station, Joey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had done a study back a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, on Route 81 corridor. And at that time, they had come up with a way to serve the train station that was, it required on that little road north of the train station that goes into the old Unilever site. You know, that little section where 81 just does the sharp right-hand turn
Yeah.
or sharp left-hand
Yeah.
turn into town. If you go straight there, that goes into the old Unilever. And on that road is where they're building the north side platform for the train station. It's almost done. And we knew that was going to be happening when that study was done. And so what the consultants then had come up with was putting a little turnaround there, because number one, for the buses, and then they could put a stop there and we could turn around and get to it. And the other reason was to have a turnaround for trucks that come down that way and then realize they can't fit under the bridge because that's a low bridge, and trucks do hit that bridge. And they do get down there and then get stuck. So that they had recommended putting something, you know, like basically a little cul-de-sac in there before it got redeveloped, and while that land was still available, put a cul-de-sac and put a shelter at in front of this new north platform. So DOT liked the idea, but then only did half of it, which was the shelter, and they're not doing the cul-de-sac. So they're putting in a nice shelter over there, with technology and everything in it, and we won't be able to get to it. So.
and that's Clinton, right?
That's the Clinton train station, yes.
That's very elaborate,
Yeah.
but it has a big parking lot there by the CVS, doesn't it?
It's not all that big. It's really narrow.
Oh,
It looks big, but it's very, very narrow, that parking lot. And the only reason it hasn't been as used is because they only had one platform. So only like half the trains could stop there. I know Sam has said it's going to about double the number of trains that stop there. And so, you know, that's been, you know, once this new platform is built, you're going to see a big increase in train service there that will hopefully lead to the station becoming more utilized.
Not going to add Amtrak? Amtrak going to stop there?
Not that I know of. That's
Yeah,
not
it's all
planned.
shoreline.
Yeah, just shoreline.
Right.
Yeah. But only the shoreline trains that were on the, you know, that southern track were able to stop there before,
Mhm.
which was only about half of them. So many of the shoreline trains couldn't stop there because there was no platform. So now that there's a new platform, it's going to significantly increase the number of trains. So we want to be able to serve it, but right now there's not a solution yet to how we're going to serve it. We've been working with the town and DOT to try and figure out how we could end up serving this station. But the long story to say that what we thought we might be able to do is not going to work.
The Amtrak service occasionally stops at Old Saybrook, but nowhere else does it between New London and New Haven.
Yeah, just Old Saybrook. Yep. And then the other thing was to cut out a lot of the local stuff in Old Saybrook. And that's where that other route comes in, the new route. So the idea was to kind of shorten the routes by having them not have every route have to double over each other, going to Stop and Shop, Walmart, and down in the center of town.
Down to the estuary, yeah.
Right. And that way they could just, if they're pulsed, you just hop off one bus, hop on the next bus and get to your final destination. So that's the two recommendations there.
Well, we have to give it a stamp of approval, or what do we do with that?
Well, so the problem is, I think we kind of have to, that change is dependent upon us recommending that other route. Because you
What do
can't
you
cut
mean,
those.
Joe?
So what they recommend is that we take off all the local Saybrook stuff and put it on its own route, which is kind of the last recommendation. So in order to recommend to shorten this route, we would need the other route to exist.
Yeah, it's conditioned on the other one, so
Right.
we can say we recommend this on the condition that the 640 route, is implemented. And that makes a lot of sense.
Right. It would be conditional.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Charlie's point, that Route 640, it seems to, the initial idea was very good, and it seems that we're utilizing it more and more for local stops, or is that I'm not interpreting right?
Yeah, it's basically the Old Saybrook local route.
Well,
Serving points all throughout Old Saybrook locally.
so
What do you think of that, Charlie?
Well, I agree with it, except on 640, as I've said twice before in meetings. I think the section going down toward Cornfield Point and then up and over to Saybrook Point, I think that is both unnecessary because I don't think you're going to get many customers there. Certainly on the section from Cornfield to Saybrook Point, I think you won't see any customers. And from the traffic light out to Cornfield, I think it'll be minimal. But my really major concern is one of safety. And during the summer especially, that route from Cornfield to Saybrook Point is so heavily trafficked. It attracts visitors, it attracts scenic routes, it attracts everything. And going over that causeway, it is so narrow that adding a bus you have local traffic, you have summer traffic, you have, tourist traffic, you have motorcycles, you have bicycles, you have runners, all on a very narrow 2-lane road. And I think adding a bus in there during the daytime hours in the summer, especially on weekends, is like an accident waiting to happen. And I think there's going to be very little financial benefit in terms of additional customers. And I think it should be eliminated because most of the traffic goes from, the train station out to Saybrook Point and back down Main Street. So that's still my view on Route 640. I think it's good from the train station and Stop and Shop, et cetera, out to Saybrook Point and back, including the estuary. But I'm against making that shoreline trip, which shows up on the map here. I think,
Charlie, I remember you're making that point and it disturbed me a lot because it's probably one of the most important observations. But when I go down from Cornfield back to the breakwater, there seem to be an awful lot of people walking along the shoreline there. And I was wondering, is that part of what your concern?
oh yeah, Peter, sure. Look, I lived there for what, 55 years, you know, some full-time, some part-time, but I mean, I know that intimately. And it's, you know, there are crosswalks that nobody pays any attention to. You have people going, you know, from Norwood and Saybrook, you know, residential across Route 154, nilly-willy, just when they want to go. And I mean, we had one right in front of my house, and traffic doesn't pay any attention to it. But, you know, add it all together and you're throwing, you know, another potential occupant in the traffic lane, and a bus is very observant. On the causeway, it is so narrow. If you want to pass a bicycler or a runner, you know, there's not room for a runner and traffic going in both directions. And, you know, there's water on both sides, and water is like a magnet. You're driving across that causeway and your eyes automatically go toward the water. And some people come down there, you know, as a scenic drive, and they want to look at the water. So what do they drift. I've seen loads of them many times, cars, trucks drifting across that center line. And you can see the people are looking toward the water and the cars drifting over the center line. I've seen that loads of times. I've seen birders set up their equipment in the road. I mean, you know, it's, to me, it's just, you know, putting a bus in there. Not necessarily the bus is going to be in an accident, but it causes other people to have their attention deviated by seeing another, you know, entry into the whole complex there on that causeway. That's my feeling on it. I think I've expressed it pretty clearly and definitely. I don't see the benefit of it of additional passengers onto our buses. So double reason, but I'm more concerned about the safety aspect of it.
Charlie, you certainly each time you've mentioned it, I've found you very persuasive, and since I've been there a little bit, it certainly makes a lot of sense. But my question then becomes, can that be sufficient reason to have an impact on whether we run that route or not? And that I don't know the answer to. But you must have a view on it, that we should not follow that route over the bridge and along the Sound. Is that, how do we handle 640 with the concerns, valid concerns that you're raising?
Well, I think going from the train station and, you know, the Stop and Shop and places in the heart of town, taking it to Saybrook Point, you know, is a good move. Of course, in the summertime, Joe, you've got that shuttle, which, you know, is going to go from Ferry Point to Saybrook Point. But year round, you know, a lot of the people going to Saybrook Point are summer anyway. I mean, there's wintertime, you know, there's not a lot except people going down to, you know, stay over at the inn. But I think most of them are going in cars, you know.
Employees too.
Yeah. So
We do take employees down there.
But I think you should have something from the train station, at least down as far as the estuary. I think that's a heavily, you know, traffic area of town. So,
And I can tell you that they did they did Maple Street and this whole area because of where we get extra mile trips. We do
Because
get
of what?
where we get extra mile trips. So they used extra mile data and dollar ride data, and we do get trips in here.
Well, I think that Charlie makes a significant point that we cannot ignore. We may not solve the problem, but it's certainly in our notes. I think it's a significant of considerable concern and warrants insertion into what we say. Do you agree, Charlie?
Well, I would, going back to what Joe said, I don't know how many extra miles you get down on Maple Avenue between Light and Cornfield, but I can't imagine there's a lot of, if any,
No, it's
down
mostly this
beachfront,
it's mostly closer to Main Street up
close to
around
Main
here.
Street. But
It's around this end of it.
you still can do that, Joe. You're still going to have extra mile, and well, that would cover, whatever is needed down in that section of Maple Avenue.
Yeah.
I agree. Closer on Maple Avenue, closer to the traffic light and 154. Yeah, there's a few. I don't think you get any all the way along the beach area, so, but it's me. I've seen it on 4th of July. The place is I mean,
it was just a way for them to get both Maple Avenue and Sabre Point. That's why. I think that's how they did it. I'm not sure exactly how they came up with it, but my guess is they figured that's how you can get both serve the Maple Point area and serve down in Sabre Point without and still make the time they're trying to make.
Charlie, can you come up with a couple of sentences that summarize the viewpoint expressed and how we should support this, and if there should be any changes and stuff, so that we can move on to what the next thing is? I happen to think 640, being a sailor, is one of the best services that we have, but I don't have a boat anymore, so it becomes academic. But I think we've reached a level at which you might be able to summarize the consensus between two of us.
Well, I think it's a matter of safety due to the increase of traffic and population, especially in the summertime. For a minimal amount of increased fares. I mean, that's about the amount of fares, whatever generated is not an overpowering reason to take.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't look at fares. We just look at the number of people served, really.
Yeah.
Because many of them might pay nothing. I mean, it's
all right. So
it's never money. It's never going to be money wise. It's just the number of people you serve. I mean, I would just be careful because, of course, if you say there's lots of people down there, it's more reason why you'd want to possibly have a bus down there.
There's more traffic there. I think that's the way of putting it.
But I mean, I will say that it's a small bus and our drivers are professional drivers. I mean, I could tell you, I wouldn't really be concerned about any of that because, and it's, if it doesn't run on the weekend, if it's a Monday through Friday, it's less busy too.
Well, that's an interesting point right there.
Weekend would be your busiest time, Joe.
Right. Exactly.
Well, if you cut it out on the weekend, then on the weekend, it's very busy from the train station out to Saybrook Point.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at over here at the study where it says what days things would run. Hold on, I have the chart here.
Well, what's good
So
about this?
the trolley is Thursday through Sunday. So the trolley will be running on the weekend.
Yeah,
So I'm just looking at 640 now. I had to go scroll all the way back up to the beginning to see the trolley because it wasn't listed with the other routes. All right, let's see, 640. No, they don't list that span either. No, it must have been all the way at the beginning with the other one.
So the trolley runs weekends and
Thursday through
Fridays?
Sunday is what they estimated. Is what they calculated in. I mean, of course, it all depends on money.
yeah.
well,
There's
that
nothing
covers your
that's-
traffic down to Saybrook Point, which is good.
Yeah, we don't have listed here. I'm guessing it would have to run on. Yeah, we don't see how many days. So it would probably have to run on Saturdays if we expand other Saturday services. It depends on what we decide to do on Saturdays. The main thing would be Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays depended upon what we decide. Oh, here it is. Monday through Saturday. So it would run on Saturday, not Sunday.
That's the 640 or the,
That's the proposal, yeah. The trolley is Thursday through Sunday. Let me just double check that I'm right on that. Thursday
Of
through
course,
Sunday.
the
Thursday through Sunday.
weekend is the heaviest traffic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that would be
Down
the
to
trolley.
Saybrook Point.
And the trolley goes down to Sayre Point, but does
And the
not go
trolley-
down. It does not go across the causeway and down that way.
but that goes up to Ferry Point then, Joe, right? The other,
Yes, right. That's why, because it's going all the way up to Ferry Point too. It doesn't cover all the beach area because that would make it really long.
but it will make all the stops going down Main Street that you want.
Yes,
So you're pretty well covered then during the summertime.
during the summer, yes.
Yeah,
And that was again figured Memorial Day to Labor Day. But of course, again, everything depends on how much we want to, how much money we can raise for that.
well, if you cut going around on 640, if you cut going around, the beach area, you're reducing your time and you're reducing your expenses. So,
Well, no, not really, because it's still got to run the same span. So you'll just make more trips. So it doesn't really save you any money because it still has to run the same times that the other buses run if it's going to be the local and be the transfer.
okay.
It just means so it's either got to be a half hour or an hour to meet the other pulses. It has to be one of those. Like I said, that's what happens when you have a pulse. Everything has to be able to work into whatever the overall pulse is. So if we're on an overall 1 hour pulse, then everything has to be working to an hour. So it could be a half hour out. It could be an hour out. It can't be anything else. It could be a 2 hour, but and meet every other pulse. Not that this would ever be that, but that's a challenge of pulsing. Again, it's very, very convenient for customers, but it does limit you on things. So we either have to be able to do the whole thing in half an hour, or you have to stretch it to an hour. And I think that's what happened was that they looked at what it kind of does today, and that wasn't able to be done in half an hour. So they said, okay, where can it go to pick up more ridership? Because now we have an hour, and that's again one of the reasons why they came up with this.
Mhm.
So, maybe there's a place we can go down Maple and turn around and then come back and turn around. So we get some of Maple.
Well-
But like I said, most of the people that use us
Got it.
are up on this end of Maple Street.
Well, Charlie, the fact
Yeah,
that you lived in that area and so familiar with it, I bow to your suggestion. I think the conversation here has been illuminating for me. But I really have to bow to your knowledge of the area because I'm not as familiar with it. But I'd like if you would summarize how you feel about it.
I know there's there's at least one or two streets that kind of make a block off of Maple, right, Charlie?
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's several that you could kind of just spin around and make a turn around at.
um,
Here's one. I had to see the roads and all that, but looks like Alan, Robert, and Otis all makes a loop.
yeah, there's a loop up,
There's also a big one at Cricket Court, but
yeah, yeah, you can turn around up, around, where the store is, but not going over there, but before that, you can, if you're going toward Cornfield, you can make a turn to the right.
oh, I see. I know what you're talking about. Right before that store in Cornfield Point.
Yeah,
Yeah, all those roads seem to make blocks.
yeah.
Maple, is that connected
share
to
my
North
map.
Cove?
I'm going to share my Google map here.
I'm trying to figure out, is Maple on the North Cove Road side or on the other side?
No, it's on the South Cove side.
Oh,
Here's Maple
okay.
Street.
Oh,
Maple is at the light when you're coming down
I see.
Main Street. There's a light at Maple.
Ah,
Right when you turn that corner, there's a light. That's Maple
oh,
Street.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And that cuts across to Cornfield Point down here.
Yeah. Huh.
So that's
Okay.
so what they have it doing right now is going down Maple, down to you continue onto
That-
where it
that's
picks
the
up
intersection.
164 here. So, and up across the causeway and back, all one way loop.
Wow. Yeah.
And so what Charlie is saying, somewhere around here, you could turn around.
Yeah, you can go in here, Joe, exactly which one, and
We could figure out any one of these
out by the store.
could possibly work.
Yeah,
We could just see what's the best one. And we just got to see if you have time to kind of do that, come back, and then still get out to Sabre Point and back.
yeah, that would be the same time equivalent.
Similar. So probably a little slightly longer, but not
Yeah.
significant, not really longer.
This
And
is,
then,
Joe, this area here, which is Knollwood, and then this is Fenwood here.
yep,
The road is virtually right on the water. It's elevated.
yes. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And
Yeah, I know it.
going the way you would be going, the water's on your right.
Yep.
And, every driver, and I do it, you get up there, you look and see what's going on out there on the water. And the road is very narrow.
Yep. Yeah, no, I know this area. I do.
We
Go
were
through
right.
there
Let's see where I
sometimes.
am. We were right in there. Where's Seacrest? Seacrest is here.
Right here.
That's where we were, right?
Oh, nice. We do have one guy, actually, we haven't heard from him in a long time. The guy he's on one of the Bayberry.
We had to
No,
cop.
Osprey. We pick up
Osprey?
a guy at Osprey. We used to pick up a guy at Osprey
there,
almost
yeah.
every day, but
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard from since the pandemic.
Yeah, we were here 5 houses in Jarvis for about 30 years. And then we did move, when I retired, this wasn't winterized. The other one was winterized. We moved up to the water.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, it's very, very pretty down there, but you're right, it does get busy. And the causeway does have a walking area,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I've seen people fishing on the other side.
Oh, yeah, when you can't walk by where they're fishing. And,
Well, and people will fish on the other side too. People will just sit up in the middle of the road and fish.
yeah, yep. But on the south side, there's space, but on the
Yeah,
north
right.
side,
On the south side, there is space to do it, but
yeah,
I still see people set up on the other side, like you said, in the middle of the road.
yeah.
So, yeah, and this
You also have the golf course, and the parking is on the
on the
north,
other side. Yeah,
golf course is on the south side.
yeah,
It's a crosswalk, but I've seen that so many times where cars just zoom right by.
yeah. So Chris, you can note, we can look at where we can make a block around that little store here.
I think that would work too.
So,
Well, you two know the area
you know
better
what
than
I've
I.
done, and this isn't bad either. I've done this, like these blocks here are good too, if none of these are. Yeah, this block up in here behind the store.
Yeah. Well, in here, you can see
I've done that in my car,
you
you
can
know,
come in here, turn around right here.
over like this whole area makes a good block. And then there's a stop sign right here. Right. Yeah, there's a flashing light here. It's there. Yeah. It's so the way it all comes in is so odd that looking at a map is very different than when you're down there.
Yes, it is.
It
That's a-
doesn't look like this at all on the map, but because the roads are so weird, oddly angled and stuff.
Yeah, it's a
Yes. Yeah,
entry intersection, but
it is, but it doesn't look like that here.
it's not perpendicular.
Yes. Yeah, it's very weird.
I'm still here, but since I don't know the territory, I hope
Yeah.
you don't mind. I will do whatever you
This
guys.
is what we were talking
think
about
is
right
there it
here.
is.
Yeah, this is the one we were talking about here. And yeah, and there's the store there.
Oh, I know where you are. That's Maple Avenue there, up there.
This is Maple Avenue. And this
Yeah.
is, so this way is 154 if you want to go back to the Post Road.
Yeah,
It comes out over at Old Boston Post Road and then, you know, like right by the Henny Penny. And this way is 154, but it goes across the causeway over to Sabre
yeah.
Point. And then, yeah, this
Okey-dokey.
little Town Beach Road coming in. So you could possibly go here, Uptown Beach, and then you're back at a stop sign and give up. But we could look at that. Okay, so that's the 640. Back to this. All right, so. Okay, so the 642. Let's see. So the big change here was to, again, same idea as kind of with the 641, is eliminate all of the Saybrook local stuff and really have this be just old, the train station up to Chester. And that's the real big difference. And then it relies on the 640 if you want to go beyond that. It really today is an odd route in that it doesn't end at the train station today. As you see in this picture, the train station's kind of like the, I don't know, 3/4 point. So it goes on beyond the train station down to Sabre Point and all through town, which doesn't really make sense, especially if we're trying to pulse it. You can't pulse in the middle. I mean, I guess you can pulse right in the dead middle, but you can't pulse at like a 3/4 point like this. So this cuts it off at the train station and then uses the 640 to kind of becomes the rest of that route. And what we were looking at was if we can get this down to 1 hour. So today it's 2 hours. If we can get this down to 1 hour round trip, then we can interline it with the 640, which means the same bus could do both. And you could have, you either could start the 640 sooner, and it just runs every 2 hours for now until we get money to put a second bus on. But the reason you might want to do it with a second bus too is that an hour might be tight on this, but whereas an hour, you probably have a lot, a good amount of, you're probably well under an hour for this side. And so sometimes you interline a tighter route with a route that has more time, so that could be the one where they make up their time. If that makes sense, like when they're on the 642, there's really no extra free time there, but then they get the 640 and that's got the free time in it at the end, So sometimes that's a way you put routes together so that you can have one route cover a little more. You just, like I said, you interline it with the less busy route so that you still get some you still build in recovery time, but you build it in on the slower route and not the busy route. And right now we serve Ireton like twice a day, and it just takes that off, which really isn't an issue.
Hey, Joe, with the realignment, are we eliminating off-route deviations?
Oh, that's a whole nother question. That is recommended throughout the whole system, but that's more money too. I'd say initially, probably not. That's going to take a while. I think that's its own thing.
Okay,
I think that's its own recommendation in itself, because that's its own getting ADA funding and all that stuff. I think we do try and pursue that because it would be helpful on all the routes, especially if you're going to try and make them tighter. Throwing in an off route now kills your schedule. This route used to get a lot of off routes. It does not as much anymore, but it used to get, a real lot. Like there were days that you could have an off route like every trip. So
You're talking about 642, right?
yeah.
Oh,
But in the current alignment, 2 hours to do this whole thing today is more than enough time. They have a good amount of recovery time down at the train station. Like you don't worry about this route now. So I think it's tight, but I think you can probably do an hour on this again if it's interlined with a slower route on the other end. You wouldn't want to run this all day as an hour because you get a few minutes behind. You'll never catch up. You can't go to the bathroom and those things. But if you interline it with something that has more time, then I think it can work.
So that's into 640.
Right. So they would do, basically the bus would do a trip on 642, then it gets back to the train station. It would become the 640, do a trip on 640. And that would be a way to start the 640 for free because you already have the 642 today.
Mhm.
But now they'd be 2 hours. And then we can work on getting the funding to make them hourly. So that gives us an option. So I think that's kind of what we're going to have to do is list out all these options again as we go through this, and then we can look at them all again. But so the big thing I wanted to make sure is everyone understands all this stuff today and exactly what's being recommended. So I think you could do that. You could have a two-step process for that. And then you would just add a second bus on there so that when one bus is on 642, one's on 640, and then they swap. And they're always, swapping back and forth at the train station.
At times it sounds so simple, and a minute later, it turns out to be very complicated. I'm sitting up in my chair very diligently, keeping up with.
Like I said, that's why I wanted to walk through it, because it's hard to read all this stuff, especially when you're not super familiar with the routes today. It's hard to just sit there and read and look at these maps and fully understand what all we're talking about, because it is a lot. It is. It doesn't look like a whole lot when you see the maps initially, but and I think that was some of the board members since when they first saw it, like, oh, well, we're not getting much recommendations at all. No, it's if we implemented everything, it's a pretty drastic overhaul of the system. Very positively, it doesn't take much away, but it does add a lot. Pulsing alone is huge. To be able to walk off, we do get a decent number. It's not huge numbers, but a decent number of people that transfer between New London and Middletown routes. And that wait right now could be an hour and a half that you're sitting in Old Saybrook just waiting for your bus to come. So pulsing alone can be a huge, huge improvement to people. You know, just being able to just hop off. I mean, if you could cut an hour and a half off your trip without adding much new service, that's pretty significant. So 644, another just recommendation of removing some of the local parts of it. So you see this end is mostly the same, except that once you get to Chester right now, it goes up 154 until 154 hits Airline Road up in the very, very southern part of Middletown, and then gets on to Route 9. This would instead just go on Route 9. After you do Chester Center, then come back and get on Route 9 and go up that way. And why is that? What did I just do? And it gets off to go into Higganum and then back on.
Joe, it says on the top that it's serving Essex, Deep River, Chester, and Haddam. Are those mandatory as part of the trip, or is it like on call?
So I don't know why it says Deep River, because that's not correct. It doesn't go into Deep River. It does the Essex and Chester park and rides. That's what it does today.
Okay, so it's right off of Route 9.
Yes, yeah, hops right off Route 9, does the parking ride lots, gets back on.
All right, you're not going into the center of town.
So right now we go to the center of Chester, and this proposal still goes in there. You see it? This little jog out to the center of Chester.
Yeah, the circle, yeah.
Yep. So the park and ride's right here. This is the center. So this does still have it going there. They thought we could still do that in the time needed. Let me look up that time while we're.
Well, Route 9 is certainly, I go up there to Middlesex a lot. Route 9 is so much better than 154 if you're on a schedule. It's pretty predictable, whereas all kinds of obstructions appear out of nowhere when you're trying to go at 154. Well, I have a schedule that I have to meet up there, so I paid a lot of attention to that.
So let's see, 644. So yeah, let's they don't predict that we'll get down to a half hour, which I wouldn't think we would either. So you're still going to be at a 2 hour, because we still have to go to the college. There's still those old deviations there, but it is a tight route today, so that would help it some. I think we'll get some comments about Tylerville, not going to Tylerville. And then there's also a Eagles Landing is somewhere about here. No way, sorry.
Eagles Landing is where?
Yeah, there it is. It's about here. Oh, sorry, Eagles Nest. That's what it is. Eagles Nest. It's a it's a nursing home, and it's right there. We get a good number of people out of there. I mean, it's a very small one, but a number of their residents do use us. It's a big house on 154. You could drive right by it and miss it. But
are you on recommended alignment or the old one?
I'm on the recommended one. So it's almost at the Haddam line on 154 in Chester. So it's maybe a little bit south of it. Like it's somewhere right around here.
Okay.
It's a white, like I said, it's a white house. It's right on the road, and so we would no longer serve that if we do this. And Tylerville is another area that we get, again, not lots of people, but there are people here. And
Yeah,
also we go across the East Haddam.
when I
So
drove for fish, I used to pick up people there.
yeah, I think on this one, I don't know, I think we kind of look and see how much time savings we really achieve out of this and see if it's worth losing all this local before we decide one way or the other. Or maybe even we come up and around. We used to do this. We used to come up, kind of get to right before Tylerville here and then come down to Route 9. On what is this here? 80. That connector basically. There's nothing on it except the connector. It's exit 7 on Route 9. If you're going to the swing bridge, you would take that. This is what we used to do, just kind of make this circle. That would probably cover everything we need to cover. So I think maybe we study this a little further and see, what do we really gain by losing all these local area? and straightening it?
Seven, isn't that Route 82 that goes to the Opera House?
Yes. Yep. 82.
Joe, are we sacrificing customers for, let's say, expediency of the time of our route? Is that trade-off that?
That's what I'm not. See this one I don't really understand fully, because they're still saying you're going to need another bus in order to achieve our headway. So I don't know what we're saving here. If we're not going to cut it down to be that you can do it hourly with one bus, then why are we losing all this space if we still need a second bus?
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I didn't understand that all along. And
our purpose is
asked that,
to,
and they just said, well, they don't get a lot of people here and it will speed up the times, which there's certainly something to be said for speeding up your travel times. People don't want super long travel times. That's
true, but if you're
that's true,
sacrificing
but
people who have relied on you and, need our service,
right.
what we're really there for, huh?
So I think that's this one we want to see more kind of, okay,
Yeah.
if we can't do this in an hour, maybe we do some sort of straightening out of it. Maybe we don't go all the way up through here, but I don't think we get rid of it entirely.
Joe, this here model supposedly to get from Saybrook, Middletown and back in an hour?
And see, that's why I don't think it does. And
Well, that's tight.
I asked for all these things,
Yeah.
and at first they weren't in the study. Now they're here, but I just got to dig and find them, because or if it's not in the study, they gave it to me. I have all the what they figured were headways. Yep, here it is. So it's figure C15 towards the back, 644, aligned to Route 9. They have it taking 2 hours still. So we're 2 hours today, but we're 2 hours and it's tight. I could see trying to take some off of it to make it run, give it a little more time to recover, but I don't see taking this much off of it. So I think we kind of re-examine this further.
Yeah, certainly in that time frame, I don't see how you could possibly do that.
Yeah, so like 643, the things it recommends does make it an hour run, so that I can see the possible good trade-off there, that's different. But if we're talking, we're still going to be at 2 hours. Well, then what did we do all this for? Yeah, So I think, again, we can shave a little off the route, but not this drastically. And then 645, the big recommendation here, this is another one that gets tight, and I think this makes sense, is that once you leave the mall, get on 95 to Madison instead of taking Route 1, because it follows behind 641 that whole way. So there's no reason to have two buses running the same area. So that one's pretty easy. And that will save it enough time just to make it not so tight of a run.
So you'd go to Route 95, is that what you said?
Yeah, so when you leave the outlets, instead of going down right now, we go all the way down Route 1 and then go Route 1 down to Madison.
Yeah,
Just hop on 95, get off at I don't know the exit number, but for Route 79, which takes you straight into our stop there.
huh, makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, you know, one of the things I think Charlie repeats, we had to be careful not to sacrifice ridership for
Well,
cutting
if
the time
if you
down.
look here, you still have 641 running the Route 1.
Oh, okay.
And they
Yeah.
leave it, they pulse together anyway. And so they will leave here at the same time together. So it won't, the only impact would be if somebody through here was going up to Madison. There are some people in the center of town, again, not big numbers, but there are a couple people from the center of town that do get on this route. So they would either have to, walk up High Street to where the bus would be, which isn't that far, or they could take 641 and meet them up here, or meet them at the at the train station. But this one does need to save some time. It does have time issues. And I'm sure you miss any of that. Yeah, and then it also wouldn't serve the train station. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the train station right now, we don't know how we're going to serve that. And we covered 640 already. So I'll go to the last thing is a trolley. I think this is going to be a little different in that I know Old Saber's looking at how do they fund it. So I think this is more of like a suggested route and suggested times. And if they come up with the money, then we may alter that. Based on if they're going to pay for it, then we'll base it off of that. But the idea was to serve the marinas and bring them into town.
Joe, have you talked to anybody in the administration about this? The combination?
In Old Saybrook?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Susie Beckman is mostly who I've spoken with. I was talking with Christine before she left.
Mm-hmm.
But Susie Beckman is well aware of it, and I've given her everything, so she has all the stuff on it. And then of course they recommended some possible new extra mile zones. One was Old Lyme, and that was to cover where they took away local service. They recommended one here. I don't know what that's based on. I would not do that. I don't know where they would go. We already have a route there, and I just can't see that being used much. They didn't recommend one in Clinton. We modeled Clinton, and it did pretty well. So if we were looking at new extra mile zones, my number one would be Clinton. Maybe even to like downtown Madison, like up in here. And I can't see this doing that well either.
So the pink is Old Lyme, and the green goes up through up to Chester.
Yeah,
I see. Yeah.
I think their thinking was they would all kind of mix in with the other one, and so somebody could get off here and get onto another extra mile, but that's not going to happen.
If you add Clinton and Madison, Joe, that's a lot more travel going to add.
Yeah, like
to the
kind of
expense.
something like in this area.
Yeah, you're going to need a big increase in the support from DOT.
Oh yeah, it would be. You're going to be talking another, $300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a significant cost. I mean, it's extremely popular, and it probably will. It's probably going to give you some of the biggest amount of ridership increase of anything, but it would have a high cost. Yes.
I just missed the subject that you and Charlie, I was making notes about the last thing we said. The subject that you're discussing here with the 300,000, where is that?
That's like per extra mile zone is about what
Oh,
it costs us,
okay.
300-ish, so-ish. And what we could do is if we say, look, we would like to expand extra mile, which people always ask us, are we going to do that? We can actually have the same company that we used for the software and that we used initially. We could have them model we could give them, okay, here's some areas we're thinking. Can you do some modeling of this? And they will model it and give us an estimate of trips and everything. That's how we picked the zone we did, and it's been successful. So they did a good job with the modeling data.
Thank you.
It's been fairly accurate.
Joe, has the whole reconfiguration on this alignment, has that been modeled, with the coordination of pulsing?
On how much ridership they think?
Well,
Yeah.
that and the timing is the other thing. The operational side of it, of everybody meeting in Saybrook at the same time is.
Well, so it works if we, as long as we get everything to either an hour, then it works. Or 2 hours. I mean, some things can meet every other pulse. They don't necessarily have to meet every pulse. I mean, that's nice if they can, but some things can meet every other pulse. And so it does work. If we do everything in here, it does now work. The only thing that you're not going to meet is, because Old Saybrook is going to be on the half hour, is you're not going to meet the Middletown pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Joe.
We don't get a lot of transfers though within Middletown right now.
Joe.
Now, of course, that could change.
How do you go from 1 hour pulse on the same service, and then you talk about 2 hour pulse? What generates the extra hour of time needed?
So, like I was saying earlier on like the 642 and 640, how if you interline them to start to just do it at no cost, because that's the trickiest one to get to the pulse, is 642. Does not meet a pulse right now. So we would have to do, if we want to just start with pulsing, but not necessarily get everything to an hour, which I think is something we can do. We could do that at very little cost, if not, and if no, might be no cost, is you could do the 642 and a 640, interline them, and then they just meet every other pulse. They don't meet every pulse, they meet every other one. So you're going to have the 643. If we also say we want to do 643 now, and so 644. So some of your routes will be every other pulse, some will be every, because we want to get 641 up hourly. It is hourly at some points now, and then 643 would be hourly. So you'd have some things that are pulsing hourly, then everything would pulse other times.
But Joe, here, 641, I've written down 1.5 hours each way. Is that wrong?
No, that's correct. So it's 3 hours round trip, and we run 3 buses on it.
Oh, okay.
We run 3 buses on it until 12:15. At 12:15, we go down to 2. So then it's 1 hour at times and then 2 hours at other times between buses. So I think our first priority is to improve 641, because as I showed you at the beginning, that's our number one busiest route. That should be number one. If we're asking for money, it's to get 641 back to hourly and make there's several improvements recommended for this gets into the cost of everything. But let's look at excuse me. My pick.
Or they go to 11 o'clock on 641-44. That's impressive.
So these are various changes in the cost of them. So you see the cost of Saturdays operating every route. So like I said, I don't think we want to sit through and maybe we want to go through these our next meeting, because we already covered a lot of route stuff. I don't know if we want to sit and go through all the large menu of possibly, maybe that's, what do you think, Charlie? You want to kind of stop here so that everyone understands all the routes and stuff, and then everyone can look through the menu that they gave us of potential changes, which is in the study. They have a whole menu with the costs on it. And then we could talk about that next time.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot already in one day to digest. And
Joe, can you send us a presentation to us?
yes, I will.
And I think that would be helpful, and then we can meet
Yeah, 'cause
again.
it sums it up nicely. I mean,
Yeah,
all
and
this stuff is
give-
in the study, but the study's so big
Yeah,
that this kind of sums it up nice.
Well, I've got to
Here-
say, I thought this summary went a lot smoother than I thought around 8 o'clock. I looked at my notes. I've got about 8 or more yellow stickums on pages, and all it means is I don't understand it.
Well,
So, I
thanks.
think
That's
it's
why I wanted
nice
to
job.
take time to walk through it, because it's a lot. There's a lot here.
What do you think, Charlie?
yeah, I think, just, as I said, I'd like to get a copy of what Joe's presented, because it summarizes, just as you said, Peter, where we have to focus and come up with, recommendations. That's,
Yeah, and then what you can do is, if you want more details on something, you can find it in the study. Or you could ask me. Of course, I'm happy to tell you too, but all the details are in the study, but this is a nice summary.
Well, I think this was at a level of discussion so that I basically understand that we're running a bus service. And I think you did it. It's all these numbers are sequential, so that is very helpful. But I think you two did a very nice job today, and I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. I understand it's a lot. And
I
so,
think it gets into enough detail, Joe, of questions that we had after reading the big package. And now we're down to say, hey, specifically, we want to,
right. So now all these menus and stuff makes more sense to you. So now you can read the menu of ideas of the other things like service span stuff, which, once you understand the route, understanding that, okay, we want to extend the hours later or earlier, that's easy to understand. But you first have to understand every route change recommended for all that stuff to make sense to you. So like I said, that's why I want to do this today and go through it. And now you can look again and look at these menus. There's one figure 13 in the study, page 35, that has some of the stuff that's in there. But again, I just sent you all the slides, so you have that. But there is a chart. It says page 35, figure 13, and it doesn't detail as much as that did, but it does talk about increased service span, weekday, evenings, all routes. So it gets into some of that stuff. But there's several places in the study where you'll find these things. But again, we'll go through each of them next time, so we don't
Tomorrow.
overload ourselves. So we could set our next date too, when everyone is available.
I'm taking this with me up to the hospital, and I'll study it while I'm waiting for them to put me to sleep. I'm not going to waste any time.
well, Joe, I think in the study, the page that are not numbered, but where they have the timings, under the revision, and it outlines, the new Sunday stuff that's in.
The maps.
Just on Saturday, not the map. It's a it's like a spreadsheet. Service span packages, it is
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
timings. That kind of gives us an indication of where something new is being added.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had them put this in too, because at first they didn't have this. I'm like, well, when are you, so what are you proposing? You have a cost here for this new route. Well, what are the hours you're proposing? And
Yeah.
so they put all this in as the new stuff. So yeah, so Charlie's referring to Appendix
Charlie-
C. It's Appendix C. There's
And-
these charts in there.
Figure C3 and C3 and C4. Well, 3 is Portland, so our interest is at the bottom, C4.
Are you okay? So you're looking at so if you're in the study, these are in there too, and then the pages are numbered in there. And but either way, they highlighted in red that where there's a change in time,
Yeah,
so you can see. But again, the slides kind of took all this and summed it up into one place. So
So you're talking about that second section with all the appendix in it, right?
yes, yeah. So Appendix C, I'll show
yeah.
you mine right now. So right in here, where they have it in red, that's a recommended change in times. So as you noticed in the slides, they recommended to 11 for 641 and 644.
And what's the heading on this page?
So I think Charlie's looking at the package of appendixes I sent you. If you're looking at the study, it's service span packages, and it's Appendix C in the study, and it's service span packages. It's page C2.
Okie dokie. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
And this kind of, it tells you exactly when things are going to run. When they propose things running, I should say. Nothing. But you saw the slides have it too.
Doesn't tell you how frequently you have to do that, but
No, that's somewhere else.
yeah.
It's a lot of information. It's a
Yeah.
real lot of information.
Yeah.
It's that is, I just found it before. That is in so that is page 1 of Appendix C. So it's just the page before has right here.
Yeah, the estimated times on.
Yeah. So this is how long the route takes, but you're right. This still doesn't tell you how frequently they are. But they did recommend everything going to hourly. So.
But Charlie, do you want to figure out when we should have our next meeting?
Well, I think, let's say the next board meeting is we don't know yet because it looks.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have a special meeting at some point. The next regular meeting is April 16th. But
Yeah, so
we
we'll go
might
from-
not even have the audit much before that, because now they're all in tax season. So I don't know when we'll have our next. So we're gonna. But we still need a special meeting at some point.
May 16th. I would suggest maybe the 30th of March.
Hey, Linda, do you have the calendar? How's March 30th?
March 30th. It's okay.
Oh, okay, fine, March 30th.
What time is good for everyone?
This is good. 9 o'clock's good for me.
9
Okay.
o'clock, good for me.
Joe, is that good for you?
Yep, it's good for me. So let me.
March
Okay,
30th at 9 a.m. Good.
okay.
By that
Making the,
time, I will surely be more confused and look for enlightenment from you two guys.
I thought that came with age, Peter. We were looking to you.
Don't look too closely. But I think it was well done. And since I had some concern about how it would run and be unintelligible. I'm happy to say that I thought it was really nicely done.
Okay,
Well, thank
so-
you. Like I said, the consultants really did all the work on the presentation. So I can't take much credit, but
Okay, Christine, can you do a write-up on this?
Yep. Mhm.
That was a yes?
okay. And I just sent everyone the invite for the next meeting.
Oh, you did?
Okay. All right.
I gotta do it now. I don't want to forget.
Well,
Okay, so
was-
the next step is for the next meeting at, on December 30th. And I think that covers everything we need here, Joe?
Yeah, covers the day today. And I think we got enough done today.
Yeah, okay. So-
well done, gentlemen. And of course, one of my favorite young ladies. She always helps me understand.
Yeah.
Christine,
Okay?
you will get top billing.
Says, anyway, move to adjourn.
Yes, I'll move to adjourn. It's, I got, what is it, 10:52. Need a second?
Second,
All in favor? Yes, let's go.
yes, let's go.
All right.